Never had 4 kids under the age of 7 not have a question. So it was a new experience. Because I'll tell you what, these kids at Vacation Bible School, they asked great questions. My favorite of the week was they were doing an environmental game. They said, so is hunting good or bad? The ethical questions with 5-year-olds about hunting for food. Oh, jeez. All right. So anyway, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be hearing stories about Jesus with parables. Okay? And today we hear him tell the parable of the sower. And so if I asked you all, if somebody came up to you and said, I have never heard what a parable is, how would you describe what a parable is? What would you tell them? Story with a moral, story with a point. Yeah.
An earthly story with a heavenly meaning is what I learned in Christian ed at high school.
All right, an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Interesting. Any others? There is no right or wrong answer on this one. I'm just curious how you would describe it. Those are pretty good definitions. Story, illustration, image, any of that stuff with a purpose. The word itself, parable, it comes from a verb meaning to throw alongside. All right. So basically, these stories, this teaching method, again, it means to use the idea of comparison, to throw something alongside. Tell this is like this. So I think one of the most frustrating things, and at the same time genius parts of parables, is their simultaneous simplicity and their complexity. All right? Because at first, Jesus' parables seem pretty plain and pretty straightforward, down to earth. I mean, with this one, Jesus, if your pastor can find the right verse, he will, Jesus will even explain this one for his disciples because they didn't get it. So Jesus explains it to them in verses 18 through 23. And yet there are all these weird little details in parables that push us to wonder if we really do get it. If we really do hear it so straightforwardly. It made me laugh last night. I always read my sermons to Erica before they go to you guys. They get the first reading there, and I'm thankful for her patience and willingness. But she, I said it's the parable of the sower, where she said, yeah, I know that one. And then we got to the end, and she said, I never heard it that way before. Maybe, she said, that makes me laugh at myself. So it made me laugh about that. But, today, if you look at our story, it sounds pretty straightforward. It's a farmer planting seed. How many of us have ever planted a garden or anything? All right. And, it seems like kind of common sense. Good soil, you're going to have good crop. Bad soil, bad crop. Point of the story, be good soil, right? All right. When I hear this story, that's usually how I hear it and how I start reflecting. I start looking at times in my life when I've been all 4 types of the soil. I've looked at times where I've failed to understand God's mercy and forgiveness, like the seed on the path. I've been shallow in my religious convictions and quick to quit or reduce my commitments when facing adversity, like the seed in rocky soil. I've had my focus on God's call for my life put off or deferred by my own wants and desires. I've even occasionally been the good soil, very occasionally, that God was able to do miraculous things with. I'm usually focused on me, the seed, and the soil. This is how I've heard this parable in the past from Jesus, and I've heard it mainly, and instead of the parable of the sower, I've heard it as the parable of the 4 types of soil. However, in reading this week and studying this week, a scholar reminded me that it is not the of the 4 types of soil. It's called the parable of the sower. The comparison, the illustration, is with the farmer. And I wonder if this is where it gets more complex than we first realized. What if Jesus is comparing himself to the farmer in the story? What if Jesus is saying that God is like this sower? Jesus tends to use parables to illustrate what God is like, to help us to understand God. These stories describe who God is. So I got to ask myself, what does the parable of the sower reveal to each of us about the God who loves us and the Christ who we follow? Instead of a simple explanation, parables often present a much more complex picture of God. What if we listen carefully and discover that Jesus often seems extravagant or even wasteful in his actions and miracles? What if we glimpse the impossible and mysterious nature of God's promises in these parables? This is a strange story in a lot of ways. The sower, all right, the sower guy, he's a professional gardener, all right? That's his job. You know, he's a professional farmer. And yet, doesn't he appear to be kind of bad at his job in some ways? You know, if you think about it, like, you know, he kind of seems to be wasteful. I mean, basically, the sower wastes 3/4 of his seed. That'd be like you running a business and wasting 3/4 of your income on things that you know are probably not going to work. All right? So what's up with that? He spreads it on ground that he's pretty sure it's not going to grow on. Who here dislikes wasting things? I know I'm there. It really grates on me. And if you want to ask Erica, I get silly upset with myself when I drop food on the ground, especially like really good food. It really bugs me. All right, and I hate wasting food, money, and time. Those are my 3 things that I hate seeing wasted. And yet, story after story in our Bibles reveal a God who can be wasteful and extravagant with his love, with his mercy, with his forgiveness. Who here can recall a perfect character in the Bible who doesn't sin and does everything right all the time? Not a whole lot of those in there. This parable shows us a God that doesn't restrict his gifts and blessings to the best athletes, to the brightest person, to the most likely to succeed. Our God is a weird God, a strange God, who lavishes love on the rocky, broken, and lonely places of the world. I can remember a program at a church that I served during internship at seminary. They send us out for a year, and we go to a church like this one, and you basically kind of are a junior pastor in some ways, and you get to preach and teach and all that kind of stuff. And I learned a lot. We hosted a program called Daybreak, all right? And so we partnered with 6 other churches, and basically what would happen is every 6 weeks, a group of about 20 homeless men, women, and children would come and live at our church. And we would provide them with breakfast and dinner, and showers, a place to wash clothes, and a place to sleep. And they would stay here at night, and then during the day, the kids would go to school, and the parents would go to like a day shelter where caseworkers help them with getting a job and finding permanent housing. It's a really, really cool program. And as with any program, if any of you have worked with helping people, money is always tight, right? It's not something that you want to waste. And I remember that most mornings the guests got a hurry bowl of cold cereal. That was breakfast, which was it was something. It was filling. It worked. And then one day our associate pastor he gathered all of the high school youth together, and they went out shopping, and they got there super early, and they cooked this full-on gourmet breakfast. all right, and they made eggs and raisin bread, from scratch, bacon, hash browns, fruit. And one of the members who was like kind of overseeing the program was not thrilled about all this. And they said we could have bought 10 boxes of cereal and milk so that the next 3 months were covered for feeding people. The associate pastor smiled and he said, yeah, but there's just something cool and something godly about wasting money on people who haven't seen a whole lot of hope, a whole lot of love, or a whole lot of mercy in their lives. What does it mean to be extravagant in our love, in our mercy, in our forgiveness? Is it challenging to us to do so? It's scary for me personally. But we have assurances. We have even when, how many of us have tried to do something with the best intentions and seen it crash and burn? But we have assurances, and it comes to us in this parable as well. And it comes to us about the mysterious nature of God, the powerful nature of God. Because what happens to the seed that falls in the good soil? What happens? It goes huge. The crop is huge. 30, 60, and even 100-fold. All right? And for those of you who aren't farmers, I want to give you a little nitty farming lesson. All right? 7-fold would be a good year. 10-fold, you would be rich. 30-fold, you would feed your village for a year. 100-fold, you'd feed your village for a year, and then you'd retire to a villa next to the Sea of Galilee. All right? So that's what Jesus was talking about. And when Jesus, they heard Jesus say that there could be a huge crop with so little seed, only a quarter of the seed, they would have said, Jesus, that's impossible. Jesus, you're being crazy. That's absurd. No soil is that good. And they would be absolutely right. No soil is that good. Thank God this story is not about the good soil, but instead it's about the good sower. The good news for you and me and the entire world is that we serve a God that does the impossible. Jesus was willing to be rejected by all of his friends, abandoned by all of his followers, and crucified for the rocky soil, the good soil, the thorny soil, and all other types of soil. And it didn't stop there. Jesus rose from the dead so that all might have new and abundant life. And I want to hold this for just a second in our heads. What if this is true? What if 100-fold yield is possible? What if the resurrection is true? Let's live like it. Let's go out of here and love like it. Let's go forgive like it. Let's go serve like it. We can stop keeping score on who owes us what. We can be willing to fail sometimes. We can be willing to not be, have somebody say thank you or be appreciated when we do something above and beyond. And I want to end with a challenge for all of us this week. And I'm going to play along at home as well. In your bulletin, there's a slip of paper. All right? You can track it down. I want to thank the Wolf Girls for helping out with that. And I want you to keep a journal. You can keep this in your Bible at night or in the morning whenever you do your reading, your devotions. Keep this in there. And basically, what I want you to do is think about this notion of extravagance. Think about this notion of even being wasteful with our giving. All right? And that's everything from love, forgiveness, generosity, how we help around the house, any of that stuff. And what I want you to do is think back on each day and keep a journal of what has happened and what you've done. I want you to write down times that you've been selfish or stingy with the good gifts that God has first given each of us. Because it's good to think about the times that we know that we, how many times have you looked at it and been like, I knew I should have done that, God. That happens to all of us. And look at that list each night and pray and ask God for forgiveness. Also, at the same time, I know that each day you are crazy generous and crazy giving. All right? Write down those things as well. And offer prayers of thanksgiving to God that you could be that generous, that you could be that giving. And I would love to hear those stories. If you are willing to share them, post them up on the church's Facebook page. If you don't want everybody to know, email me. Call me. I would tell somebody else, but tell about the God that loves you so much that can allow us to be wasteful with love, grace, and mercy. Go in peace to live the good news.